Welcome to Retreat Affairs. This is your host Sascha Kaus. I'm super happy that you have found the podcast. If you're hearing this, you're listening to our free feed that will only feature partial episodes of the podcast. If you're interested in the full conversation and all content, you need to subscribe at retreataffairs.com. There you will get access to the full recording and a private RSS feed that you can add to your favorite podcatcher, and you will be able to access other subscriber-only content. I never want money to be the reason why you can't listen to the podcast. So if you can't afford a membership, there's an option at retreataffairs.com to request a free account, and I grant 100% of those requests, no questions asked. Souls. In this episode of the Retreat Affairs podcast, I welcome Petros Haffenrichter. You find Petros on his website pax108.com, on Instagram at Petros108, through his yoga travel company yogatravelandbeyond.com, or through his yoga studio in Munich, Yoga Am Engel. That's engel.yoga. Petros is a yogi who brings his teaching in many forms. He has been teaching yoga and running retreats for more than 20 years. Petros taught many teachers throughout the world, and as a musician, he released several albums with this project Petros and Friends. Should you ever have the chance to join a kirtan with Petros, don't hesitate to go. If you like singing in kirtan like I do, Petros is one of the most joyful and heart-opening musicians that I know, and I'm sure you will feel the bhakti energy too whenever you get to listen to him. When I planned the podcast and was thinking about who to invite, Petros was one of the first people that came into my mind. I met Petros in my Jivamukti yoga teacher training, where he was my mentor. All my yogi friends who have met Petros before and knew that I would be going to the teacher training said, "You will like Petros. He's a great guy and you are very similar." To be honest, I found Petros challenging at times, and not everything I experienced resonated with me. And I guess that is also what I like about him. Petros is a clear thinker and a strong personality, and in the way he challenges me, I get to observe my conditioning. Another teacher that I met once said the job of a teacher is to make the student ask questions. I think that is what Petros does. He seems to have that sensor that enables him to address what needs to be challenged within me, so I start asking myself questions about where I am, who I want to be, and what are my conditions and values. What is important to me in the podcast is to keep the conversation open, so whatever wants to arise has space to come through. Sure, I have an idea where I want to take the conversation. I have questions that interest me and that I want to bring up. But it is also important to me to feel the energy of my guest and feel what is moving them and what wants to be said. With Petros, I felt that a lot. I'm very grateful about it. I had the idea to talk to Petros much more about the business aspect of retreats, as his company Yoga Travel and Beyond offers a lot of retreats, and he's deeply involved in the Kreta Shala in Greece, an amazing retreat place that I didn't have the privilege to visit myself yet, but many of my friends that have been there describe it as one of the most powerful and beautiful retreat places that they have ever been to. You will get some of both of these topics in the podcast. But most of all, you will hear a lot about the deeper meaning of retreat as Petros sees and feels it. I'm very grateful that this is where the conversation led us. It was very inspiring for me to listen to Petros and his thoughts, and it left me with a few questions that I haven't fully answered to myself yet, but that give me certainly food for thought and that I will explore in future episodes of the podcast. So, without spending more words here, I hope you will enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Welcome, Petros Haffenrichter. Petros, very nice to have you on the show. I'm so grateful that you take the time to talk a little bit to me.
Of course, I'm happy that you're talking to me. Otherwise, I would be silent today. Also a good choice.
Okay, lovely. So tell me a little bit, like, where are you at the moment?
Right now, I am in my house in Crete, the island of Crete. Or it's my mother's house, actually. Or it's my great-great-great-great-grandfather's house, and it's an old mill. And we have the good luck that we could restore it and over the past 20 years. And now it's a nice place to stay. And I come here in summers with my family, and my kids love it. And it's a little bit, old school village style. I like that.
So is this kind of a retreat for you?
That is a good question. The question is, what is a retreat? Is it anything that is just changing your present location as it is different to what you are habitually situated in? And no, I would say it needs a couple of more attributes that you consider something a retreat. But, well, you retreat from something, meaning you go away from something and you change the circumstance in which you are finding yourself in. Well, then, of course, then you can consider it a retreat. But then going to the toilet is also a retreat. Anything that is a break from norm is a retreat then. And it's not that easy, I don't think so.
Okay, so what would be a break from the norm for you? What would be a retreat for you?
Well, as there are always many layers to everything, let's be a little bit more specific, right? I mean, are we talking about, as I said, just a change from norm, or okay? So if I consider something a retreat, it must have some attributes. It should be. It should start with an intention somehow, as everything good somehow starts with an intention. And that allows you to see or to experience something or to have time for something or with something that needs your full commitment. So the normative distraction that you usually experience, the normative routine of things calling upon you and life happening, is not distracting you from that. So that means that you take away all the factors that would be a distraction to what you want to concentrate on. So you retreat away from the sensory information that usually has a pull on you, so you can witness a different state or a different experience or different depth to to your life than you would usually have. And by the way, if we are in the village and it's noon time, so it should be quiet. But sometimes there's these merchants that pass in the cars in the Cretan villages, and they call for that they have apples or fish or chairs or anything. So we may hear that. If you ask me if this is a retreat, yeah, this is a retreat in the sense that I go away from where I usually live, and I spend time in a different place. Alone that gives you a different perspective on many things anyways. But I've also learned that if I just spend time with my kids, for instance, I don't have that many intentions or plans other than spending time with my kids or with my family, because we also sometimes we need to free ourselves from making too many plans. I'm sure that you know that also. Like with people coming to you, and you know, you also host retreats, and you're a great teacher and a great cook, as I hear. That people come, and then, you know, you have a list of things. You know, you want to go, and you want to free your mind, and you're going to get fit, and you want to hike, and you want to draw, and you want to read a good book, and besides that you want to have good food, and besides that you're going to be on a diet, and besides that you're going to also be enlightened, and besides that you're also going to achieve a certain kind of physical state in which you can do handstand for an hour or things like that. So we have a list of things usually that we take with us, and what I've learned in my practice days is that the longer I'm doing this, the less is on my list what I want to see achieved, or the less expectations I have to what I want to see happening.
And how do you create that when you create retreats for yourself? How do you try to communicate that to your guests, or how do you try to facilitate an atmosphere, a space where this is possible?
So are you asking me as a retreat host, or how I would host myself when I retreat for practice? Because that's something different.
The question was more aimed like, how do you make that happen for others as a retreat host when you invite people to come with you and you give the frame?
Well, first of all, I think it's a Greek saying, and I think it's also Indian, or it's universal, that you must know how to be a good host. But that also requires that you know how to be a good guest somewhere in life. So I try to know and to bring in my experience on both levels. So as my retreats, you know, I teach retreats. I have taught retreats in many places, and it's not always the same frame. Sometimes I teach, you know, pilgrimages or yatras, or, you know, I go to places where I myself am a guest, and I take other guests with me, and then I'm in a situation of being a co-host as a guest. Then sometimes I get invited, and I don't really take care of the overall frame of what the basic, you know, offering of accommodation and food is, and I just bring in, let's say, the part of yoga practice or meditation or philosophy onto the plate, on the table, and then sometimes when I'm here in Crete, that's a different situation, because I co-manage the retreat place. And then, of course, the set of host skills that you must have, or that you should have somehow, is a long one, because I think you need to just first, as Krishnamacharya said, you sincerely must like people. If you don't like people, well, then you don't be a host. Don't call upon people to come to you. So, meaning, if you call people to come to you, you can never be overwhelmed by what their needs are. Then you must be very patient, very open-minded, very open-hearted, to understand that, you know, in a retreat, as it happens nowadays internationally, there's international people with different backgrounds, with different lives, with different setups in their lives, in different stages in their lives. It's not, you know, sometimes, of course, you have, you know, a group of friends, or you know, one club coming, and then there's many similarities. But then sometimes when I teach a retreat, let's say the average yoga retreat in Crete, in the Kreta Shala that I manage, sometimes I have people from 15 different nationalities, ranging from 17 ranging from 3, 5, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, 10, 12, 16, 18, I had retreat guests that were 85 years old, and others around 80, and some practice yoga for 50 years. Other practice yoga for never, not ever, first timers, and they all come there because then of course there's some mutuality in their interest, and for them of course then you must be quite flexible because everybody has the specific needs and wants, and I think for some people it's a great thing to feel challenged, that they can accomplish something through the challenge. And they can do that, they can go to retreat and then they have a fasting time through the retreat, and then they get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and they want the pranayama, they want the meditation, they want the full-on sadhana, so to say, and then they go into into longer contemplation sessions, and there are those people. But then there's other people who feel they need some kind of home feeling, and they don't want to be challenged too much in the beginning. Let's not have the sessions too early because they don't know about their sleep. Then it's a foreign place, there's foreign people. Many times on retreat the situation is, because this is one of the basic ingredients that I like to give in retreats, is that I actually ask people to share rooms together, because I feel this is something very important, that we so much declare that we want the world and everything in it according to my boundaries. So my boundary is my life, my choice, my yoga practice. I have my food my way. I practice my time, and I want to retreat into my room where I have my, so to say, private firewall, and nothing comes into my room and to my space. And I need my space, but I feel one of the basic messages of retreats is that there is no my space in the world. There's only our space. And that's one of the most important things we have to learn. It's that we learn again that we are sharing the world together. And if you feel that you want to actually do your thing and retreat from the world, then actually do that. Then there are many great places in the Buddhist tradition, great places in the Christian tradition, where you go and you go into your cell and you are alone. Or do it even better, go into nature alone. Do that. Take your tent, go into the forest and retreat. And this is what I do. This is like, if I go on retreat, this is what I start walking into the forest, and I stay in nature alone. No books, no telephones, no computers, no anything, and I spend time there.
When did you do this the last time?
Well, actually last week I did a little session, not too long, only for 3 days, but before that, in midst of as we are in the midst of the virus crisis in the world, and everybody feels, we all are responding to that in our own ways. So there was a time in May where I felt that I need to take a break from continuous 5-hour online yoga teaching. I had enough, and so I walked into, as I have the great fortune to live close to the Alps, and I know some hiding places there, so I just walked into the woods and I stayed in the forest for 10 days and I shut up. And that was quite helpful for all the situation to deal with, all the challenges that we have and all the different levels of perspectives on that.
So how can I imagine that? Do you really like pack up your backpack, take everything you need for a few days, like all your food and everything, and you just go into the woods and find a spot for yourself? Or how does it look like?
As I like to be in nature, and I have done that quite some times. In the beginning, you think you need a whole lot of things. In the beginning, if you're a first timer, so to say, to go camping, then you take everything you can imagine. In the beginning, as I like music, I would take my guitar and my flute, and I even took my harmonium once, and then you go and you have all the stuff with you, and then you need the survival kit, and you need the first aid kit, and then you need the sleeping bag and the tent and I don't know what, and then each time you go, you actually feel that you don't require that many things actually if you just sit and you are with nature. Then you don't need that much food than you think. When you're in nature, you feel quite nourished. It takes a moment, and you need to know that. If you panic because you feel you're somewhere alone in the woods, but nowadays, okay, to be honest, I don't live in somewhere in Canada or somewhere in Russia, where then the next living being is a 7-day walk away. So if you're somewhere in the Alps, the Bavarian Alps, next people you will find somewhere within a range of 1 or 2 hours. So you are never in the situation that you could actually meet the grizzly and you're alone and you have to fight him, and you run out of, what was that movie, Into the Wild? Did you? Yeah, so that kid goes into somewhere in Canada and gets lost and he gets sick and he dies. Horrible story.
But did you have one of those moments where you totally felt like lost and oh my God, it's too scary?
No. Maybe not on a. Well, I had that once on a boat. On a boat, I was sailing alone, and one of the sails broke, and I was quite off coast. I was like, next coast was somewhere 50 miles or something, and the wind was very lame. It was like nothing happening. I thought, so if it stays like that, and I only had a small outside motor on the boat, and I just want to go actually from Crete to the mainland. And I was just out there, and then you don't see any island or anything, and you're out there and you think, oh my God, now I'm alone. But then again, it's the Mediterranean, the next coast is somewhere around. So anyways, but back to what you want to take and how you pack and so on. So that is also a nice analogy for life. You think you need to be very equipped, and you need to have all the vaccinations and all the security measures that you can take to be safe in life. But life is not generally dangerous. We have to understand what the normative is in life. We have what is the rule and what is the exception. The exception is that life is life-threatening, and that is not happening every day for us. It's happening the least days. It's happening one day where life is so threatening that is actually passing. But for most of the days of the year and the years, life is not such. So that is the rule, and you can trust that a little bit. And when you spend time not with the suggested state of that we hear in media a lot, of course, that you have to take precautions to be safe from life, and life is life-threatening and life is dangerous, and then you never stop taking care of what could threaten you, and then the list is very long what you have to prepare for, because then you have to wear a helmet because potentially a meteor could hit your head. It could happen.
Do you remember a time in your life where you had more of those fears, where you experienced more of those fears? I just listened the other day, I just listened to an interview of a guy who really made this a challenge for himself to go into his fears, to overcome them. Like every time he felt, okay, I'm really afraid of going into the water. I cannot swim, so he made himself swim. I cannot run, so he ran 100 miles and even longer. And all of those things. Is it something that resonates with you?
Well, I think we all have to be honest about what scares us, and how to be honest about that, and how to learn that part of life, that we have to overcome a couple of projections that we have. I said that if we collectively project that life is something threatening, then we try to collectively find measures, but we don't expose ourselves to that which is threatening, so to say. We only take precautions that what potentially could happen, is not harming us, but we don't expose ourselves to it. And, our common teacher, as we are Guru Bhais, David Life, once said that life is an experiment, and I totally agree. I totally agree, but a little bit on the humoristic side to it. I mean, you don't have to, if that's your thing. I mean, you're scared of heights, so you climb the mountain. Well, that's one way, but I would, do it in a light way. So if I feel that something is scary, look at it and then check what is the precondition, what is your experience, what is the suggested format of where does that fear arises from. And
do we feel we have a tendency to run away from those things at the moment or in our lives? Do you feel that it's something we've totally unlearned also by not being exposed to nature? I mean, like, who goes into nature and is really exposed to something that might be dangerous? And like you said, in our surroundings, at least like we're living in Europe, it's quite hard to really get away from civilization, to really find nature that is maybe in the archaic sense dangerous. There's like no big animals that are threatening. I mean, even like poisonous animals, we hardly find them here in Europe. In other parts of the world, for sure. But is there this kind of tendency of running away from everything that might be in a way scary?
I don't know. Is there? Asking you, what do you think? Because of course, if we are human beings. And we repeat ourselves, and that tendency always was there to to be in love with your own illusion and try to keep it up, and then make everything work accordingly. That the illusion can be taken as reality.
I wouldn't consider myself a fearful being, but I definitely see that I had things in my life that scared me in a way. Sometimes it's maybe not about going into nature or things like that, but there are things in life that scare me. Yeah. Sometimes it might also be emotional. And then I feel, okay, there is something I learned over the past years that there's a way to lean into those things, to lean into those fears and slowly and subtly overcome them. So there is something, and now it makes me more and more curious. Like now when I observe for myself that there's something that gives me a kind of, anxiousness, I feel like, okay, what is it? I ask myself, what is it? And how is there a way that I can overcome it? Is it really important? Is it something that serves me to be, in a way, aware of maybe a potential danger? Or is it just like a story that I tell myself? And why do I tell it to myself? So I find it quite interesting to go into that.
Were you able to turn around those fears ever?
Yes, absolutely.
Or are they just happening on a different level? Are they happening on the more intellectual level? I feel that, for instance, let's say the physical feeling of vertigo. Some people who have it. I never had it until a couple of years ago, and I have been told, like, if you get older, so it may be a sign. So you get older, you get it. So when I was younger, I would, climb up every rock that I would see, and I like climbing. I like jumping off cliffs. I like diving. I like, motorcycle racing. I like stuff like that. That's a little my conditioning. But and I would say I always liked, because that was your initial question, to conquer my fears. That was something that is just happening. I was growing up with all my cousins in Greece, and I was the youngest, and everybody was kind of showing how little scared they are from I don't know what, and so I also had to do that somehow. But over the time, I feel that's very interesting, and that's why I'm asking you. Is like, I don't think that we actually overcome the fears. I think they're always there, but we put them in a different place so we can we can learn from them, and we can understand why they are in our lives. Like Krishnamurti has this beautiful lecture on fear. If something scares us, then, well, if you have the courage and the patience to look at it, you learn a big deal about your conditioning. Maybe even if you have the patience to look long enough and close enough, then you learn about karmic preposition in life somehow, because you feel the same kind of pattern of fear repeating in different relationships or different situations. So I don't think that we are actually, overcoming those fears. I think we just put them in a different place in our installation of who we are, so we can accept something, or we evaluate something in a different way, and we feel that was necessary. Because honestly, it's totally fine to be scared of a poisonous snake. Totally fine, to be scared of heights, that if you fall off that height, you may die. It's a totally good, not a bad thing to have that security system installed. So growing up with and being a dad to a couple of boys, and like all boys, they like that game of trying to understand how far you can go, what scares you, how to challenge your own fears, and how to overcome them somehow, especially if someone is looking, and or especially if someone is not looking. So to balance a little bit and to give yourself a good feedback in life, what is the area that you can live in? What is the range? Being too scared is not a good thing. Not to be scared at all is not a good thing. So it's always to learn moderation. But the idea was a little bit the question on the collective and what is the normative, and if we are too scared, and if we are too scared to be in nature, for instance, and are we taking too many precautions, and do we have established a system of culture that suggests that culture is safe and nature is unsafe? I think that was a little bit the initial question. And yes, we have established that culture, and it's horrible. I feel that nature bears no drastic danger for the soul. Maybe some dangers for the body and the person that could even die by a snake bite. But culture has, a list of concepts that are, or life concepts, how we should live life, that actually is creating a pattern of illusion. And I think that is more dangerous, as I'm interested in yoga, so I'm interested in the soul and the health of the soul. That is more dangerous than whatever could happen in nature to you. Because whatever happens in nature is something very important for the person especially. And let's go back to that theme, that you spend time in nature alone. That is the main retreat. I feel this is the main retreat theme that everybody who's interested in spiritual growth should aim for. Everybody who's interested in understanding about what the person is, what the condition of the person is, what the person underneath the person is, what creates the person, like ahankara is, what dharma, and svadharma, your own natural understanding of righteousness, or what a natural universal path of well-being for your soul in this body is. If you want to know about those things, then I don't think that you can get around spending time alone with yourself. And spending time alone with yourself in culture is not happening. In culture, you're always living a version of yourself that is a suggestion by culture. And as Nietzsche says, that we like to spend time in nature because nature has no opinion about you. So you don't create a response to that opinion, because what we are very much in a cultural context is the response to the opinion of what we feel is external. So I would encourage everyone to actually try to do that, to spend time in nature as much and as alone and without distraction as possible. I think that's actually the easiest and the fastest sadhana of all sadhanas. If you're interested in yoga, that's the thing. Do that.
And how can you... Is there any way of experiencing that or getting close to that in a group of people when you go onto a retreat?
Yes, of course. Because, I mean, as we said, it's a change from a normative. So you do something that is not on your daily plate and you emphasize the practice. That is also, hopefully special. And then what I feel is very important is either that you have a very strong subject that you can work with as a theme in a retreat, and that theme could be that it's meditation, or the theme could be that it's a specific form of practice, whatever it is, pranayama or so, or service, could be a great retreat theme. Then you have that theme, and that may be the main thing. What is the motive of the retreat? Or you have a very strong, spiritual content, something that is if you go to a pilgrimage, like a retreat, you retreat away from the worldly demands and duties and tasks, and you offer your time and your and the space that you are giving in your life to a higher principle other than the mundane world. Or then, of course, and this is maybe my favorite, is that you find a place that is very much in nature. This I find is the most effective way to bring all those things together, because nature to me is very spiritual. And to be in nature is an act of spiritual union, and the themes of any yoga practice resonate better in a natural in a place where nature is not manipulated that much than you have it in comparison to a city. I don't think, for instance, that city retreats are actually working. If you do that as with a specific theme, then of course everything has its place.
But you mentioned before that you've gone onto a retreat for yourself in May when you've been tired of doing all this online teaching. And I was talking about how the connection to nature is so important. And many of us have been really locked away. We've probably been quite lucky in Germany to be able to still go out. At the moment, I'm here in Ibiza. I'm living in Ibiza. Everybody here in Spain was really locked away. I've talked to friends that haven't been able to go anywhere for a few months, other than the supermarket around the corner. I was quite lucky. I was like in nature almost every day in the beginning of the lockdown. What do you feel about this? Like, what are the effects right now, and how can we overcome this, or how can we find back to a way where we are more connected with nature?
Well, we change our diet, number one. We change our attitude about who we are as a species, and then we lose through understanding who we are, we lose our fear of death.
Why the diet? Let's start with that. Why the diet?
Well, without the proper diet, or without a diet that is conducive to a finer level of sensitivity, you will never understand who you are. And illusion is just too predominant. That's why you cannot have any experience of unity, a profound experience of unity. You can have many experiences of upliftment, of joy, of periodically being more merging with divinity somehow, but an overall continuous fine current of awareness is only possible if your pranas can flow freely, and your pranas cannot flow freely if if your nadis are clogged, and then it's a little bit physio-energetical. Then the knots of consciousness that are in the way of understanding of what reality is, they're just too tight. The granthis, you cannot just get through them. And then you will manipulate yourself into some kind of inferior versions of potential unity, and you will mistake them for unity. So that's why the diet is you can't get around that. You can.
Can you explain that a little bit more for our listeners that are maybe not so much grounded in a yoga practice? I mean, you've mentioned a few words, the granthis, the nadis, that are not familiar with everybody.
Okay, so let's leave the space of belief and disbelief for a moment. Okay, when I try, I'm not here to teach anyone anything. But let's say we all have experienced that there are things that we can witness when we are at our best. We know when we have slept well, when life is not pulling us in a specific way or pushing us in a specific way, when we are emotionally at ease, when we are physically, we feel okay, there's nothing nagging us, there's not, oh my back, oh my head, oh my life situation, something balanced, moderate, sattvic state. So the yogi tries to create that sattvic state, tries to aim to actually be in that state where you find moderation. There's not too much of a pull to one side or to the other side. So how do we start to create this balanced starting point? Like if you want to ask, life daring questions, if you want to know about who am I, if you want to know about what is the universe, who is God, is there any God? Like if you start on a very desperate leg, or like in the Bhagavad Gita, great scripture, everybody should could study that. It's a good pastime, and of course more than that. There's this picture of a very strong man, a warrior, a kshatriya, Arjuna. And he has a moment of despair. He's doubting his life, like we have collectively right now. With this moment of the virus, where everybody goes like, "Oh, what is happening?" And then you see what is happening in a society that is not in balance. The imbalance is becoming bigger. If you have something that is life-threatening, and you go like, "Oh my God, now we have the virus." Now, if we would be a calm society. Meaning, if we would know, if we would take the teachings and the experience of life, that life never ends, if we would take that serious, if we would understand that life is eternal, if we would know the soul, not as a concept, but as an experience, then maybe we would not run around like frantic, ants on an anthill where someone sticked the stick in. But we are, as a whole culture, I mean, we are very much in illusion. We are, selling stuff to each other that we don't need. We are emphasizing the wrapping more than the content of anything. And I don't want to be highly critical about it, but if you don't see that, if you don't see that participating in media, then you're participating in a interesting game of illusion that is repetitive and it's triggering the same, easy triggers of dopamine rushes, and they're very easy to get, and everything is coming in bright colors, and everything is designed in a way that stimulates you to go back to it and to want stuff that you don't need for life, and to identify as things and as beings and as identities that are illusionary. Well, I could go on and on, but back to the case. So we are, as a society, emphasizing very much the ideology of the person as an object. And that is not a balanced state. From a yogic perspective, that's illusion, that's avidya. And if you bring something challenging to that, if you bring the question of life, do or die, to that, it will bring more imbalance. That's why you see so much diversion nowadays happening, so much blame, one side and the other side, emphasizing the polarities, and that's why there's a lot of imbalance. And I hope to be wrong, but it will be worse than what we experience now. But back to the question, so what can we do? And what is the terminology of yoga? So I don't want to come from a place where those things are just, coming from a book. So we all know that if you make a decision, a clear-cut decision on a good day, with a good intention, in a good mood, it is substantial. It can carry you somewhere. If a decision is made out of, the urgency of the moment in despair, then usually we are short-sighted, and then the effects also are of such condition. So what the practice of yoga is the summary of the experience of people who balanced out their life, took the precautions to do what they need to do. That starts with the physical life, and what you need to do to find balance in the physical life is you have to understand that the main yoga practice is how you living your everyday, and what you do every day is eating. So if you're conscious about your food, if you don't create imbalance with your food, neither outside nor inside, then this is the main ingredient. And so if you have a good balanced diet, then your humors and the energies in the body, they can function in a good way, so you can understand and you can perceive the body on a finer level, and then you can start balancing the body and the physio-energetical processes of the body out. And for thousands of years, millions of practitioners have done that, and they succeeded. And they handed down that knowledge, and they said, well, you know what? This does not work. Try that. This works for sure. And, there we are amidst of a discussion on yoga tradition. Yoga is, nothing that we have to invent. Yoga is Atta Yoga Anushasanam. It is what it is. Everything is connected. You can be conscious of that. It needs a couple of ingredients in your life and a couple of things to fall out of your life to experience that. And then you see that you feel and you experience that you live in, a different world than you would experience if you are, let's say, a citizen of a city, trying to achieve the statuses, the external statuses that suggest that you are, the object. I don't know, architect, married, boss, wealthy, or creative, or whatever those external attributes are. Because we are all actually, one big movement all together, and our consciousness is able to get it, and not as a concept. Our consciousness is able to understand what itself it is. Now that's a trip, and you need to be stable to do that. And there is something like a equation to do it. And as I said, one first part of the equation is that you have a stable life. A stable life derives from stable health. Stable health comes from stable activity, balance, and food. And then you go on and you practice what, all the thousands of years of practitioners have practiced, and that is to slowly fine-tune the body. And then from the body, you understand that the body works through energetical processes, which is, let's say, temperature of the body. And then you learn to manipulate that temperature, so you don't have to manipulate any genes. You just change the balance of warm and cold in the body, in the organs, and in your left and right hemisphere, and in your left and right side of the physical body, which is the shell around a finer body that is its side. We know of nerves, we could think it like that. So you learn through the body to actually address the nervous system, and through the nervous system you address the density of information flow in the body. The more dense the information flow it is, the more heated it is, or the more male it is, or the more spacious it is, the more cool it is, or the more moon or female it is. And you learn to balance out those things. And when you do it regularly, then slowly you feel that, you can actually feel that there is a different level of experience that is, let's say, deeper or higher than the external feeling of physicality. Then you have emotionality, you have thought, and then there's something underneath that is an overall feeling for energy or awareness for space and density that is not any more physical or emotional or intellectual. It's kind of, a combination of all those. And the yogis practicing all those things that I was trying to now explain for a couple of minutes, practice that over hundreds and thousands of years, and that their experience. And then, they met and they said, like, well, you experienced the same thing as I experienced the same thing, and you do the same practice. What do you do different? So they exchanged their knowledge about, and slowly over, generation to generation, we fine-tuned that information, that how to access the finest layers of what we can address and experience. And those finest layers is a web of light that we are. That is, they called it the web of light that we are as a physical energy body, is consisting out of nadis that are. It is a web, and through those nadis, energy, light, prana, life force is flowing. And the same way that you can actually, manipulate your skin through exposure to radiation, or taking it out of the radiation, the skin is responding to it. The same way you can do it with the muscles. You can train the muscles. More density will bring more awareness or more strength or more male, or you can relax it and you can stretch it and it brings balance. And then you can go deeper, and then you can have it even on a skeleton level. If you actually challenge the bone through penetration, the bone structure will become more dense, or if you take that away, it will become more spacious. And that also is happening on hormonal level. So if you have more testosterone, then the structures are getting more male or more tight or more dense. And if you have more estrogen, then you have more space and the bone structure is getting more soft. And then beyond the hormones, then of course there is more layers that you address. So all that is within the range what we can interact with inside of us. It starts with diet, and then slowly it goes deeper and deeper and deeper. And then you feel that your thought and the way your breath and the way that you leave your breath has an effect. The breath is food also. Light and the way that you expose yourself to light is food also. Thought and the way that you expose yourself to thought or to silence is also, is the same, has the same characteristics. And you learn to include that into your practice. And then the yogis saw and felt and heard mainly those principles working within us that are very fine, that you don't understand if you are just bound into an awareness of the physical body. And so they felt that there are these locks, or also there are these energy centers, that people write books about, the chakras, but you don't need to write a book about it. It's a field of experience that you actually cannot name, and you don't have to name, because I would say it's beyond or underneath any language that we should use to experience or to practice with such things. If it's language, then there's some kind of visualization practice that we do, which is also effective. So, and then we have the ability to go with our whole consciousness beyond the places that we are bound to on a physical, physio-emotional setting of life. That life is anything just what I can see and emotionally grasp. And beyond that is, there's God. And this is what yoga is all about, that you have a meeting with God, or it, or her, or whatever you want to call it. And then if that is something that happens regularly, then of course the whole architecture of what we understand life consists of has just a different depth. It's not different than what everybody perceives, just has a different depth.
So you talked a lot about balance, and you talked about that. I mean, this is all really ancient wisdom. This is something that's been around for thousands of years. And you said there have been people that have been practicing this, and out of their experience they've been able to share, like saying, okay, we've experienced this is how it works, and so go try it out for yourself. You can have the same experience. And nowadays it seems like we're just not willing to experience things for ourselves. We're just like taking on advices from others. We're just taking on what media tells us, what we are supposed to believe, and especially in those days right now with the crisis with the virus, there's a lot of things that we are told but we actually don't know. What would be your advice at the moment to handle this situation? Like, how would you bring this into life? Like, how would you advise people to look at this?
But now is not any different than any other time. We want to so life is always life-threatening, and we always must take the position that we have the responsibility for our own body and for our own emotions and for our thoughts, and we have it collectively together because we are sharing the space of life together. If I am trying to manipulate you in any specific way to make you understand, believe, hope or fear what I understand, believe, hope and fear, I don't respect that you come with your own arrangement to understand and to see, to experience what you have to experience in your in your life as a soul in this body. No, this time is not any different than any other time. But what we see clearly now is that you have we don't know our own body because we have rejected the responsibility for our own body through cultural imprint. We grow up, and whatever we feel in our body and whatever we experience as a human, it gets used and interpreted in a way that is common sense. I remember the time when I was a kid and I got sick. And I really enjoyed being sick because I liked the buzz of having fever very much. I didn't feel anything, wrong. And also I feel that the rush of hormones and neurotransmitters that is happening when you are actually in disease. If you're also pain is something very interesting. We are, there is this pain that you cannot deal with. This is one thing, but then there's this, the whole variety of pains. That is a whole language on its own to teach us something. Change your life. Pain means change your strategy. That's it. Nature's talking to you. Nature doesn't tell you, take aspirin. Nature tells you, change your strategy, do something, change your rhythm of life, change your thoughts, change your diet, change your habits. Don't use toxins. Get some rest, get some sleep. Change your relationships. Don't hang out with those people. I mean, the set of pain is a very, if you understand it a little bit, it's the easiest way to have a great life. Really. I mean, if you shut it off, then you may not get the teaching. But if you just go through, what life is telling you with pain, then you're going quite well. If you have a headache, well, if you have a headache, there is something in it, in that headache. And there's a story that is preceding the headache. Now look at the story that is preceding the headache. Look at the rituals that you have, at the habits that you have. Look at how you're living your life. And look where the pain in the head is taking place. Is it taking place at the frontal lobes where the person is? Is it taking place, somewhere else where, the society is? It's taking place in a different way where the root of your physical existence is? Is it taking place at the hypothalamus where your coordination and the set of orientation is happening place? Where am I? Who am I? So pain is very specific. And if we are, and of course, that's very naive. And I do, of course, respect that there is pain that you just cannot ignore. And you have to address it somehow. And then for everybody, sometimes that the pain is gone is the only thing that we're interested in at that moment. But we're very, very, then very naive with what the information was. Because the only thing what we want is that the pain is gone, and then we don't backtrack. We don't go like, okay, I didn't take care of brushing my teeth. I was eating too many sweets. I was not taking care when there was a slight pain. I was not paying attention. Then there was more pain. Now the tooth is really, killing me. So, do something with it, give me an injection and take the tooth out. But there was a preceding story to that. And the preceding story is giving you the whole set of practice in life that you can apply into your life to have a good life. And the same is happening emotionally, that same thing is happening, intellectually. There are all different pains in life.
Yeah, I like the expression when you said that you enjoyed this feeling as a little child, feeling the buzz of a fever.
Until someone comes and tells you, "Oh my God," and you see the expression on your mama's face, and you get all like, "Oh my God, something's wrong." But until then, nothing was wrong.
Yeah. And maybe even before, there were moments where it felt like, okay, they've been telling you about what it is like, and then you are afraid, but then you actually go through it yourself and you find out like, oh, it's not that bad, and actually there is something to it. And I have to say, like over the last few weeks, and especially during the crisis, there were a lot of things that were coming up, emotionally, physically, and in a way, being able to feel that was something that I was really, really grateful for. To really be able to observe, to see, okay, what is going on with myself? Yeah, feeling very emotional at times, feeling ungrounded, feeling anxious, but also observing everything coming and going. And I definitely remember also a time in my life where I've been numbing those feelings, yeah, with different things, with psychoactives, with food, with sweets especially, and I was just not allowing myself to feel. Yeah, and that's something that I'm really, really grateful for, because it teaches me a lot. I'm able to listen. I'm able to hold still, and then feel like, okay, where is this coming from, and what does it actually tell me, and do I have to stay with it, or can I let it go?
Okay, why are you and why am I, okay, why am I not able to carefully watch? We talked about fear. Now we talk about pain. I mean, okay, that's also a great topic. Um, and there's a very uplifting subjects, I feel. We could talk about death in just a moment, because that's also very uplifting. Um, because to talk about fear and pain and death is very important, because they are great parts of our life, and trying to negate that will just bring about confusion. Anyways, so why don't I have the moment and the clarity and the patience to take care of my fears and to take care of what scares me? Is because there's a certain kind of routine in culture that we have, that we seem that we must function according to some ideologic pattern. Meaning from Monday to Friday you have to function, and then Sunday you waste yourself, and then you have to function again, and only to a degree that you can participate in the world as it has the set of expectations towards you as a human being to fulfill the part that you have to fulfill in a society. And then usually that means you have to work. I don't agree. Generally, I don't think that we're made for working. But if you have, and if I have the time and the patience, and I don't have to rush, I may not even take the aspirin to kill the pain. I may be able to evaluate the pain in a different way, because I just have the space and I have the time to look at it, and not to be scared of it because I have to overcome it. The whole idea of, I think, why we are afraid of fear, I mean, we are fear of fear, and why we are afraid of pain is because it could stop us from participating in the normative pattern. And then we are, losing our social integrity. Generally, I think our social systems have lost their integrity a long time ago, after we have suggested that we all have to participate in a merchant's version of life, where everything is hierarchical and in competition, and where we are merely working or spending time. Spending time is, such a great expression, as it describes very much how we use our time. I'd like to, enjoy time and celebrate time and live life, and not spend my life and spend my time. And as we are doing that, how do you, scratch, how do you gather that little bit, bit of time that you have to make your own decisions that you use then for, participating in social media, and I don't know what you do, but, all that system is suggesting that you have to be, fulfilling that system. And now if you're in pain, then you cannot fulfill the system, because then you cannot go to your job, and then you cannot pay your rent, and then other uncertainties will kick in. So back to the question, what's happening if you have the time to look at your pain? What if you have the time to acknowledge it? What if you have your time to slowly allow fear to rise and to come and to get bigger and then to dissolve? What if you don't cut it in the beginning, in a moment where it's just approaching and you don't even see where it's coming from and what it is? You're just, that overall, I think, will bring a feeling of depression. If you have no space for your fears, and if you have no time for your pain, then at some moment you will have rejected and avoided so much that that dark cloud of unconscious input or internal input or internal mechanisms that you cannot backtrack has just, gotten too big. And then you don't know. You don't know what that pain is. You don't know what that fear is. And then it's just this big thing of something. You also, say that a little bit, that aren't we living in a time of, and so on. Yeah, we always have human tendencies that we are in a specific way and dealing in a specific way with the challenges that we are going through. But I think that what the yoga practice and the tradition of yoga brings to the plate is that first it is a system of relationship in the best way, that we respect and we learn from each other because we are each other. Meaning what you go through, I go through somehow. What I go through, you go through somehow. And there's beings, and because you also said that aren't we just listening to someone telling us something, preaching us something, and we just kind of like following the choir, and everybody's singing, "Oh, be afraid," and we are afraid, and if somebody's singing, "You have to, wear this," and we wear that. But there's a different kind of relationship, and that isn't at the basis of the yoga is the guru relationship, is the relationship with teacher. Pain is a teacher, fear is a teacher. Now, what would you do? And death, by the way, is the greatest of all teachers. Now, what would you do if you're able to recognize a teacher? That's a city. that's an achievement to be able to recognize the teacher. Because if you don't see the teacher, you cannot learn, and most people don't see the teacher. But anyways, so if you recognize the teacher, wouldn't you like to pay attention to all the, to the last word and to everything that the teacher has to tell you? And now, come on, honestly, everybody could state that, well, yeah, pain and fear were teachers in our life. Did we pay attention? And now that brings us to back to your question originally, saying, so in the time that we are witnessing right now, where everybody is going through, a phase of trying to understand what is threatening our life on what level, what does that mean, what is the condition in it, where will it take us, what are the measures to be taken. And to me it all comes down to our, the drama that we are experiencing is not so much that people are suffering and dying, because people were always suffering and dying. That's the condition of the world. We are decaying and we are dying. And we're doing a lousy job accepting it as a teacher. And we're trying to avoid it on all means necessary. And we think that this kind of ideology of trying to be safe and healthy is the best choice to be content and to be, what our human potential can be. I don't think so. I think that the teaching here is that we must hold, for a moment and look again, very carefully look again what scares us. And are we really afraid of dying? And this is why we're doing everything. And do we think that we can be safe of death? And this is why we're doing everything. And then we are actually trying to avoid, the health system to collapse, and we call it, and that's something collective, the health system, meaning, and I agree, the health system is something collective, but I don't mean the beds and hospitals. I mean our consciousness that we share together. If we like what we are doing right now is we're dividing the world into, people on one side of fear and people on the other side of fear. Yet there's nothing to be afraid of. That's the whole teaching that that nature is teaching us, is like, don't be afraid, because everything is coming and going and coming and going. So what are you afraid of? Why are you acting? And you could say, well, again, Petros, that is very naive, because what if your kids get sick? And what if you get sick? And wouldn't you, use a vaccination and so on? And I must tell you, I don't really know. But what do I know is that I actually am not afraid, of decay, and I'm not afraid to die, because I don't think that dying is any bad thing. And if we together could decide that, if we actually together get out of the dogmatic state to, by all means necessary, save human lives over, over the life of any other species, over the life, and then first, save the youngest, and then, do whatever it takes to keep old people alive. If we could get out of this dogma, I feel that we would have a different life altogether, and that life wouldn't be so dramatic on that page, because then you die, and then we meet again, and then we go like, what was all the fuss about? This is great. We're having a great time, because there's no time. So it's amazing. We cannot imagine that, because that weird perspective on a finite life, as the common sense, and you only live once, and you have to live your life, and you have to, all this have to, that brings so much pressure. Oh my God, what if you don't get it? What if you don't get it in first class? Then, you do it again. Then you get it in second class. What if what if you fail in second grade? Then you don't get your diploma. And then this is all based on the idea that life is linear. It's all based on the idea that if you fuck up, you fucked up forever. That's all based on the idea if you don't reach the goal, you don't reach the goal. But that's ridiculous, because there is no goal. There is no goal that you can achieve where, as we sell that to each other, that like, if you then achieve that, and then you did it, then let's look at it. What are those stages in life? Then when you have children, when you got that job, or when you get the salary, or when you have a house, or when you get divorced, or when the children will leave the house, or when you get the diploma, or when you will move to Hawaii, or when you will accomplish, the Maha Kumbhaka, or when you accomplish a certain kind of stage of enlightenment, and when you come, it's all aiming into this concept that you reach some predetermined ideological state, and then you're okay, and then you got it. And that's not happening. It never happened. It not happened in school. It didn't happen when you grew up, because you never grew up. You never stopped. Like, it wasn't the case when they tell you, oh, when you're grown up, then this and that. But then you never stop growing, and so you never can arrive at that stage. And then they tell you, if you practice, third series Ashtanga, and then you practice third series Ashtanga, then, and there's more to come. And then you practice meditation, and then you practice meditation, and you think there must be a point, there must be some cooking point of consciousness, and then, it will evaporate, and then, the water of your life will have become steam, and then you will know. But see, all that is not fulfilling, it's not possible. That's why you live one day, and then you live one day, and you live one day, and you live one day, hopefully sometimes in retreat of all that stuff, and you live one day again, and then you wake up to your consciousness again, you wake up to your consciousness again, you wake up to your consciousness again, until you don't wake up to your consciousness again. But then you wake up to your consciousness again. And why is that so hard to understand? Is because we have that very powerful ideology of a finite life, which, if you just a little bit with your senses, is nothing that you can witness. All you witness is that maybe bodies And people are not present as they were before, but they actually never leave. When my father died, he left his body, but I cannot say that he wasn't present. I may not experience his physical presence, but I'm very sure that I experience his presence because he is part of my consciousness. And if we understand that in practice, we are addressing that part of our reality, that we are that consciousness. So nothing is ever missing. So nothing can ever be gone. And if your consciousness stops, your consciousness be the least to be concerned with it. So there's only win, win, win on all sides, all the time. Win, 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 win. Everybody's happy all the time. But yet, we believe technocracy, that we have to, invest everything into a life and lifestyle that is based on some kind of material identity. And in a retreat, maybe, you can approach a different experience a little bit. And if you have that different experience, then it's all good. I mean, as you are a chef, you're a cook, I know for sure that you have experienced the moment where your cooking was just right and the ingredients were just right and the time of preparation for it was just right and there was no hurrying for it, and the people who would actually enjoy your cooking then, they were just like the right kind of awareness to enjoy a good cooked meal. Nobody suffered for that meal. Nothing was thrown away, and then everybody sat there, and there was that sense of, infinity of that state. That is just, you feel nourished. You feel nourished in the act of cooking, of putting everything together. You feel nourished by sharing. You feel nourished by being nourished. You want to give back. And everybody goes like, oh, I could die right now, no problem, because it's all just very okay. That state, that is the balanced state. That is the state of yoga. It's just, this is what, I never read a book of Eckhart Tolle, but I take it what everybody tells me, that is what he's talking about. That is now. That's all there is.
I experience it when everybody's sitting down at the table and there is no talking. There is no talking. You just get a little bit of and you have these kind of sighs where people are just like, oh, yeah, and they're chewing on their food and they're totally in that moment. Yeah, there's nothing to think about. But then there's also this kind of, I also have moments where I feel I haven't done it right. I mean, I didn't really made that dish on point. I wasn't at my best. And I always see it like going on the mat. Like, not every practice is the best practice of my life. Yeah. And then one day I might blame it on the teacher. The next day I might blame it on the weather, or maybe I blame it on the food that I had. So my practice is not right. But then I try it again and I go again on the mat, and I'm able, and that's at least what the practice is teaching me again and again, that I can be with that what is in that moment, and I can observe it and accept it. And this is also where I feel in retreat, it creates this kind of space that's possible for observance of awareness in that moment, where we can just be with what is. And there are all these moments in like every retreat that I've been on myself and that I've given and organized. There's always a moment where something comes up for someone, yeah, where there is the space that we usually don't have because we're always running, or people, whatever, we're always running like the bunny behind the carrot on the stick. We're always running for something. We're always trying to get somewhere, to achieve something, and we're just not aware of where we are. And in a retreat, then there is this space where things can open up and we have the time to feel, and those things that have been stored somewhere in our body, in our mind, suddenly find a release. And there's this the guru is coming up, the teaching is coming up, whatever it might be. Might it be the beautiful food that's bringing tears to your eyes, or might it be your roommate that's annoying you? Something's coming out, and learning can happen. And that's definitely the beauty that I see.
It could be the other way around. It could be the food that is annoying you and your roommate that is just...
Well, yeah, could be. It could also be the teacher, could be the location, could be anything. I mean, there's enough triggers in a retreat that can happen.
Yeah.
Hi, this is a little note from your host. I'm super grateful that you are here and listen to our conversation. If you enjoy the show, why not become a member of Retreat Affairs? There's so much more content than in this free episode. As a member, you will get access to the full interview, you will be able to read the transcript, and have the links to everything that was mentioned throughout the show. But most importantly, you will help me to keep the podcast going. I started this as a project that's close to my heart. I'm passionate about the podcast, but it also keeps me busy quite a lot. By supporting me, you will help me to dedicate more time to this project and still be able to pay my rent and have some delicious plant-based food between recording sessions. Every bit of support is super welcome. And if you feel the love, don't forget to share this with your friends. Thank you so much for your time and your interest. Let's go back to the interview. We've talked a little bit about these crazy times. At least they seem maybe a little bit more crazy than other times. But you've just ended a retreat. Was it your first retreat now after the lockdown?
Yeah. Yes. Well, I don't know. Well, I did retreat, but I taught a retreat like that, and where people had to travel to get somewhere. That was the first time. But that takes me one step back, because you were asking before how I would, how I experienced the whole lockdown situation, and that, yes, I enjoyed very much that people got out of their, cages and open to life again. But on the other hand, I feel that if you were able to just live a natural life, there actually is no lockdown. So on no level, I don't think so, because go into the woods, stay in the woods. I mean, if you live in Alaska in winter, it may not be an option. If you live in the Sahara, it may not be an option, but in many moderate places in the world, that's an option. So everything that we're experiencing is happening because we are gathering, large entities of people in the same place. The urbanization of the world, and we are very many. So that said, is one motives for people, I think, to be in a retreat is to also have the power of like-minded support of other beings. Like if you are interested in a yoga retreat, and to me, by the way, well, yoga and surfing and yoga and hiking and yoga and whatever, side activity, that's one thing to approach the topic of practice, but a retreat also should have a sincere basis, and that sincere basis is that the practice is not just a mere repetition of a certain routine. A retreat should actually take you to a deeper place and not just, contribute to the fun factor of life, which also is okay. But that's my personal trip. I feel that me personally, if I offer and I share retreat, it's always satsang, and it's always a group of like-minded beings coming together in good and virtuous company that is a very auspicious, very, has the potential to bear great spiritual fruits. If we come together and we have, I don't know, other content, it's fine. But the sincerity of the practitioner is very important, and the sincerity of the teacher is also very important. That doesn't mean that you have to come, sincerity doesn't come with a grumpy face. But that was what I actually felt in the last, in this retreat, and also in everything that I offer. That, as I offer yoga retreats now in the 20th season, so I've taught 20 years of yoga retreats, quite many. I feel there's always, joy and laughter and dance and lightness, but there's also depth, and there's also, questions, and there's also the space that opens if you have a sincere approach from many people. If everybody's just on a superficial page, then it's there. It's what it is, and it's not bad. But if everybody allows to inquire, to go into inquiry internal, and to spend time with the main questions of life. I mean, other than how do I get a promotion? I mean, who am I? That is that could take many lifetimes. And then you have a group of people who are interested in that kind of day. Spend your day with offering your time and your space and your energies, your pranas, to that question, or to a dialogue with God that inspires me a lot. And this was what I experienced in the past retreat, because I feel that for those people coming to the retreat, nothing much changed. Those are the people who would travel to India with me, let's say, to the Kumbh Mela, where you have typhoid and cholera and pest and lepra and malaria and I don't know what, and a coronavirus would be something minor in comparison to those things. And yet you go and you make the decision and you travel. You always have those people, and this is what I feel. I have I have the great luck and the great fortune to be in the satsang, in presence of such people who dare to live their life, who dare to, lock down. I don't know. We talked about lockdown, and the media said that all the borders were closed. All the borders were closed. Well, honestly, the borders were closed for leisure travel. Meaning like you cannot go on vacation. There was no border closed whatsoever for business. I mean, isn't that crazy? Means that you cannot live your life if it's not contributing to the markets, but you can offer your life, and you could potentially die because you cross the border and there's danger in crossing the border, because now we have nations again, and you have the border, and then you have a different virus and a different agenda on the other side. That's a ridiculous thing. So whenever the mainstream media was reporting on borders closed, that's a hoax. It's not true. The reality that's happening in the world is a very different thing than what we experience in media, and it's like that for decades now. Come on, when will we wake up? What is that? Just a couple of years ago we announced that we are in the post-factual era, meaning that facts don't matter anymore, and now all of a sudden, like, the mainstream media has all the facts. Really?
But this is actually, I feel a lot at the moment. What are the facts? I mean, facts are somehow like they're different every day, and there's like so many ways of interpretation at the moment. So
yeah, but I would really say let's go with reality, meaning, what surrounds you? What are the communities around you? What is the suffering in the communities within you and around you? Do you witness a crass increase of disease, of suffering, or is it really just something that is happening if you read the newspaper? And it is on a large scale happening in the media. It is not happening in reality. If in the world you have right now a 99.98 rate of people who got infected and survived the virus, well, that should be in the media all the time. You should have in the media that from 100 people being infected of a virus, 80 people don't even notice that they are infected. So you read that you have those large numbers of people infected, but you don't have sick people. Now, how about showing that those people sick of a disease are the only ones who actually matter, and of those, the ones who are hospitalized, those matters. And do those being hospitalized, do they actually make the health system, as we talked about, make it collapse? Well, that it did happen locally on different events, but that same thing happened locally on different occasions with other disease situations, like the influenza 3 years or 4 years ago. The same scenario happened in, for instance, Italy or New York. So I'm not saying, I'm not taking it lightly, and I do respect everyone who wants to act in a way, and that's maybe the nice motive, is that we want to act in a way that we don't want to endanger someone else. But just by living your life, you endanger, a variety of species. You're okay with eating, a pig, well, then you are endangering life as you are just making your life choices. And back to what the picture and the narrative of the media is, and this is something that I don't get, and I'm, I want to respect everyone making their choices. But as I heard that, the borders to the Czech Republic were closed, I just traveled to the Czech Republic the day after, and nobody asked me anything. I just crossed the border. And the same happened with Austria. The border, it says the borders are closed. This was the media thing. Borders are locked down, borders closed between, you cannot go. What you could do, of course, is you could do anything if you're working. If you do it for your job, no problem.
So if you said nobody asked you, so you didn't have to justify why you traveled.
In Czech they didn't, and in Austria I was crossing the border when it was locked down, absolute lockdown. In April, May, I was crossing to Switzerland, to France, to Austria, to Czech, just to check. I checked in to check if the border is closed. But
did you have to make up a story? Did you have to tell them that you were on a business trip?
No, I'm just saying. No, yeah, they asked me. Like I was stopped 2 times, and one time I was asked what my business was, and then I said that I'm a meditation teacher and I'm going to a meditation spot. So, and that was Satya. I teach meditation, and I meditate in nature, and this is what I did. And that's it. I mean, we have to overcome this crazy. But then again, I think that each time has to go through their sets of illusion and ignorance and unawareness and having a state of fear and potential threat making our life. And then we have to ask again, what is the rule and what is the exception? And this is for the first time that we, or very, very rare moments in life, where we collectively agree that we make laws based upon the exception and not about the rule. And this is strange. And there we see that we have a very, that we have created a state of collective awareness that is so easy to be manipulated, and that is far off from some kind of self-awareness of who we are, of what we are, what our responsibilities are as a person, and what our responsibilities are as a society, and how we respond to that, how we actually, support each other. Because what we're doing right now is not It's not that. But
But
yeah,
what would be your response to someone saying, yes, it's good that you are like a person that's aware, that's conscious, that's also a person who is taking care of others, so you don't put others in risk. I mean, like, you don't do anything that puts anybody in risk who might be easily affected by the virus. But people saying like, yes, but there's like so many other people that aren't that conscious, that are aware. So we need certain kind of rules to protect others. So this is like what's helping us on a broader societal level, to find a way of dealing with the situation. Yeah, we cannot, everybody cannot be responsible for themselves.
okay. Oh, yeah, that's a long story. So, not everybody can be responsible for themselves. That's why we have to install traffic lights. That's why everybody is, using the traffic according to the traffic lights, and that's why there's dead people where everybody was using traffic lights, because some people didn't pay attention. How can we deal with that? That somebody is not paying attention. We have to trust the people more. We have to have we need a different school system, that we learn to pay attention, not just fulfill the rules. And then, okay, your question started with, I think that if somebody tells me about my responsibility, yeah, we should have a dialogue about that. We should have a dialogue of responsibility with each other, not about each other, number one. That is not, we are living in a time where it seems to be normal that we talk about other people all the time, and we don't are taking our own, mind, how Brahmananda Saraswati said, mind your business. So that's your business, your mind, and what you're doing and what your duties are. Okay, so if we want to open that chapter, I think we want to talk about collective responsibility. Okay, fine, then we should do that. But then we have to open the full book. We cannot keep it on some kind of ideology about the threat of a virus. Then if you want to open that book, then we have to talk about the production of weapons and the sales of weapons in the world. Then we have to talk about borders, about national agendas. Then we have to talk about refugees. Then we have to talk about people waiting in concentration camps somewhere outside Europe. And Europe is paying people that, their other countries to keep them there. Then we have to talk about people flying jets over other people and throwing bombs. Then we have to talk about, millions of people, dying of starvation, because they don't have the right food or they don't have access to water. Then we have to talk about all those people who are, including all four-legged people, and more than four-legged people who are dying in those innumerable chambers of horror every day. Then we have to talk about the health system, that is a system for that is a big industry that is not supporting health, what is promoting disease. We have to talk about it. You want to talk about it? You want to talk about social responsibility? Then we have to talk about social responsibility, and we really have to do that. But we cannot start with raising the index finger and saying that right now you are endangering someone because, first to talk about other people. If you feel that somebody is doing that, then okay, live your life accordingly to what your set of values are in life. And allow other people to be in a tolerant way to accept that they have their own duty to do that in their life and trust that they will do it. Because if someone wants to meet someone, despite the fact that we could die, then that's just normal, because this is happening every day. Now, do you think that we are dying more of the virus if we ignoring the fact that we could die, so we take precautions, so we don't hug each other, we wear masks, we are in isolation? Well, that has also deriving matters and impact to our lives. And those slow triggers in life, they're very potent. Never underestimate that. Well, and as a person with a German passport, I don't underestimate slow triggers of social change. We know very much how crass and how traumatic it can be in a society. I think we need dialogue and no dogma, and we take responsibility, what we are doing and what we're thinking and how we are acting. And as a yoga practitioner, I always am concerned about those things that didn't start now. But you want to have a dialogue, I'm not talking about you, but socially, globally, then we have to talk about all those things. We have to talk about HIV, we have to talk about hunger, we have to talk about sales of weapons, we have to talk about the power of the NATO agenda, we have to talk about the finance system, we have to talk about the pressure of the finance system, we have to talk about where do we want to start and stop about it. I am happy to talk about all of those things, but I refuse to solely raise the finger and say that this now is your responsibility and duty as a human being. But the same moment, then you have to, take the alcohol out of the stores. Then you have to take cigarettes out of the stores. Then you have to open up to all different kinds of dialogue about what suggested, wrong diet is killing more people than the virus potentially could. There are I think there's almost 30% of the Northern American people are obese. That's not overweight, that's obese. That's 1/3, it's obese, meaning that's very large. And I'm not judging them or me for being in such condition and if it's right and wrong. But do we want to talk about responsibility? Then we have to start on a very deep level and then go step by step. And not just kind of like, shout around that now we want to take precautions about the virus. Take precautions about, your health, your physical health, your mental health, about your relationships in the society, what your duties in societies are. Then, it's infinite. And I don't see that as happening. I just see a lot of, shouting about this one thing. And that to me is not sufficient. And that just really shows me that we didn't take care of all the other aspects for too long.
So is it something that can also happen in retreat, or is it something in general? Do we have to have more of a conversation again with each other?
Continuously. I mean, continuously we have to talk to one another and learn what it takes to have a good dialogue, because what we're doing together now is that we are learning to use technical devices that take us out of our responsibility to properly, call and respond in a respectful way with each other. Everybody's talking about each other, as I said, nobody's talking with each other, because that will take personal integrity and your and you or me willing to bring everything that I have onto the table, even with the possibility and with the option that I'm totally wrong with everything, and that I can learn, and then I don't know anything, by the way, that maybe I have to learn again tomorrow. Maybe I have to wake up tomorrow again. Maybe what I knew so far is not what should be the whole set of the way that I perceive the world. Maybe I have to wake up to a different kind of strategy. Maybe I have to change. Maybe I have to stop, using this kind of device. Maybe I have to start doing other things. Maybe, the willingness, and this is one of the great human options that we can choose, the willingness to learn and to be, and to use that potential. that we don't know anything, and it could be that something is happening tomorrow that puts, that discredits completely everything that we knew up to date. And it happened a couple of times in the human history. It wasn't the case. We didn't know what would happen, as Mr. Oppenheimer said after they threw the atomic bomb, in the end of the Second World War in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We didn't know what it would do, but it changed us forever, to the worse or to the good.
What did you just learn from the people that came to your retreat that you just finished?
That we deserve to listen to that voice that is in constant research and wants to be inspired and surprised all the time.
How was their, what was the communication like amongst the guests? Where did they come from? Where did they travel from?
Well, in this retreat, because it was a German retreat, it was mainly Germans, of course. Some people from Switzerland, some people from Italy, some people from Greece. But speaking German, for some days I had friends who didn't speak German, so it was English. That's nice because we can kind of we are having international communities. I like that. I would say I'm very tempted, like we all are, to make divisions according to how people are dealing with the virus situation. And I think we should refrain from that. We all, again and again, have the same kind of motive in life. Nobody wants to suffer too much, and we all have to. We all feel that some joy is necessary. Or it's good that it's there. I felt, actually nobody was really concerned about the virus or about that. We just kind of did what we always did in retreat. We hugged, we massaged, we chanted. And, if you die of chanting, then according to the Bhagavad Gita, you're very lucky. Very lucky. I mean, you may laugh and the people go like, "Oh my God," but that's irresponsible. But what is responsible? What do you respond to? What is responsible? What do you respond to? It's completely, the human right to offer his life or her life to call God. If you die for that, and with that, I don't mind. Well, if we die anyways, I don't mind. It's okay. That's what it is. If we go through, pain, suffering, and disease, it may not be something that we want to choose. Yet, I must say, I've met my teacher. He was very sick. He's 90 years old and he lives here in nature, and he thinks he had corona, but I don't know. But several times I've met people who are very sick and about to die, and they're just in a nice state. They're just very okay. It's fine. I've met people who you couldn't say that they have any specific real problem in life, and they were miserable. So, what does it say? What is it all? What is it all if it's not your option to consider that you have a choice where you want to lean to? And that never changed. If you're physically healthy or not, that never changed. You could always lean to a place in which you want to, in which you experience life as full. or you always can lean towards the space where you feel that always something is missing, no matter how much you have.
Do you also see a chance in the situation right now that it yeah allows people to wake up to something, to bring something new into their life?
Well, yeah, as I said, some time ago here, I see that with people who have, practiced some kind of awareness practice, meditation, yoga, consciousness, spirituality. All those people, they have an option. But for the rest of the society, I feel that, and you can really see that in real time, that is bringing great imbalance and great insecurity, and those effects. They're so obvious how we fall back to something very, the inferior parts of the human options of emotions: judgment, blame, insecurity, intolerance, impatience. And I see that as happening on a larger scale than I would like to see it happen. But of course, I also see that those people who have spent time in practice, that they have options. This is why we practice, right? I mean, that we have options. Even one of my teachers, Shamdas, he would say that, well, in good times, better spend as much time in practice, because when shit hits the fan, then you may not be in either in the mood to practice, or be or the life circumstance will not allow you to. So what will you draw your inspiration from if you have not practiced in the times that were maybe not so challenging?
Yeah, and I always remember that when shit hits the fan, I remember us in the yoga teacher training, and when you were my mentor, there was this kind of conversation about, like, why do we speak so much about God in the teacher training? Why is it always like God, God? And some people were like offended by it. They didn't want to speak about God. And I've been, like, for quite a while, for quite some time in my life, I've somehow turned away from God. Yeah, I was like turned away from everything that seemed to be spiritual in a way, and I couldn't really relate to that. And when you were always saying, like call it whatever you want, but who are you going to turn to when shit hits the fan? Like, if you have something that you can turn to, that's going to be your savior. And that really resonated with me, and I'm always having that quote in my head, and it's something that I deeply felt throughout the last few months, because there were definitely moments where I felt like there was no ground beneath my feet. But I also felt that I have something through the practice that was giving me a stability that was so deep in a way, and that was allowing me to feel everything that was coming up and just letting it happen, and not being afraid, not being scared of what was there. But I had something that I could turn to when somehow shit was hitting the fan. Yeah.
That's good. I'm happy for you.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that into my life. It's gonna stick around for sure. So like, with all this kind of discussion about travel and everything, can retreats be something where we can come together in smaller groups? Can it be a new form of travel, or can it be something that might have a different importance in the future for people, to come together, to be in a group, to experience community in a different way than what many of us, or what society has been doing with the ways travel has been implemented in society?
You know, many of the cultural evolutions that appeared in the past decades, I would, be quite critical about if it's if it's something that is a good thing and has integrity, such as, how we changed from making a journey to mere traveling, meaning kind of like, tourism is something that is a strange thing actually, because it just actually the place that you go to is secondary. It's more the attitude that, or whatever you can what you can consume at that place is important. And I don't know where everything goes, and I don't like to forecast what will happen, because I can't. But I would hope and see the option that content that is closer to some kind of that provides the space for introspective and for real change and for planting the right kind of seeds that you can see them prosper somehow in life, that may become more attractive. And I also feel that the path of spirituality will become more attractive, because if you look around, then what you're going to hold on to, because if it's just just adding more to one's format of or life of consumption and consuming and just visiting places, instead of actually grounding yourself again and again, that means that it takes your offering, that needs your also your affection for your life and the place that you travel and that you visit, and your commitment, and that we will feel that if you are committed in life in such a way, then you gain insight and some powers out of that. And that is, I think that will be more and more obvious. And then let's move back a little bit to the original and first question, what a real retreat is. So if you would have the normal times of being a human being, it comes in different stages. You're a younger person, then you're in your middle age, then you get older, and then you're a very old person. And each has its juices somehow and its challenges. And traditionally, a retreat would be that you would go and you commit yourself to a deeper and exclusive spiritual practice, which the yoga practice is. It's not a fun thing to do many times, to learn about yourself and to learn about your depths and your illusions and so to remember that actually that is something, if you do that, you draw great strength out of. And from my side, I'd like to participate and to provide those options. It always comes also with joy and with some singing and with, meeting great people. But that should be there somehow, that if you go there, then you actually start making different life choices. So it's not yoga vacation situations that I'm interested in. And I think that kind of attitude in the world right now for good is at stage. Can we keep up for 8 billion people a format of first world consumption and traveling and anything that is attached to that kind of lifestyle. I don't think so. So I feel that we're going through a great change and that it's good. And wherever it will lead us, it may take a couple of generations. We will learn what we're dealing with on planet Earth a little better. But I think also that it will come through suffering. It will come through going through actually the necessity to change. Yeah, and that's okay. That's fine. And yoga retreats, will be around because the yoga will be around anyways. It may be not, that kind of lifestyle format that we know, but that you move away from society and spend time in deep practice. That will always be there for those interested in that. But that's only a few. We always have to also be honest. That's not everybody's interested in that. Some people are, and they're not the better people. It's just their karmas are ripe in that sense to do that. And a riper karma also is not in a hierarchical way better than an unripe karma. It's where we are.
I want to talk about two different places. I want to talk about Greece and Crete and the place where you host your retreats, and you said you're also you're running that place. And I would like to talk about India, where you take people. What's your relation to those two places?
Well, in Crete, I grew up in Crete. My mother's from Crete, and I love the place. And I think that's the main ingredient. I feel Triopetra is, there's places in the world that serve energetically. They serve the practice quite well. And, in that place, in that area, for hundreds of years, people would go into solitude, like eremites and ascetics, they would go and retreat in that place. And there's caves in the mountains where people would stay in solitude. And then, I was offering retreats in a different part of the island, but I myself would always go, to retreat in nature there. So I would go to the beach and just hang out there for a month. So after some time, I understood that it's a good idea to teach where I feel my practice is the strongest, and so this is why I went there, and this is why I started the whole thing. And that's Driopetra. And so people are coming there for many years now, and I think it's the 17th season that I'm there. So I'm very happy that I can share that place, and people, come back. That's a good sign, and they have been coming back. So over 70% of the people joining the retreats are, repeaters. So that's a very important sign that it works. And then, of course, India is, nothing is random, and that the place in the world that held up the Dharmic teachings that were present everywhere. If you look into ancient Egypt, if you look into ancient Greece, if you look into Babylonia, Persia, the Zoroastrians, Africa, the Americas, you will see that that communion with nature as divine that happened everywhere. Now, India kept the integrity of the teachings alive over thousands of years. And I don't think that it's random. And the yoga that we know is actually coming from that place. So paying respect to that place is very important. And also, it's an infinite source of inspiration. So when we retreat and we go on pilgrimage in India, I mean, that's the thing. You may say, well, maybe the future brings that we don't fly around that much, and I would totally support that. But I would travel to India by boat and by train. I would maybe start cycling there. I don't know. I think it's worth it. Why? Because what you experience in India, when it comes to yoga and to the potential of yogic teaching, is unique. You only find it there. And what we experience in the world very much is a form of, yogic interpretation through the lens or through the filters of, North American marketing systems. And because we grew up with them, we respond to them and we feel they are attractive. But it's very good if you actually, if you are a real seeker. And what is that? Everybody's a real seeker, even if you seek some kind of truth in what you do. Then that place is just very potent. And I don't know. Every time actually that I'm about to travel to India, and I have traveled there many times in my life, I think, like the last couple of times, I was like, really? Do I want to do that again? I want to go there again? It's like all that, there's many people and the dirt and and the long traveling and I don't really enjoy it that much as I did when I was younger, to say, that a lot of traveling. I'm traveling my whole life. But then I'm back in India, and then I know why I'm there.
Yeah, I get it. The moment you get off the plane, it's just like it feels very, very special, and it's like a homecoming. Yeah.
And there's no other place, that's the place that kept Dharma alive. So where are you going to do your pilgrimage to? It's those teachings. Even if yoga nowadays in modern India, is made the sidetrack through modern popular Western yoga systems and got back to India. Now the young Indians, they're like, they like it because it's a cool thing. But I think tradition prevailed for specific reasons in that area. And we can just call ourselves very, very lucky that we can actually draw the nectar from those who kept those systems and those principles alive.
So do you plan on bringing people again to India?
I don't make those many plans these days. If we learn one thing, is that long-term plans. Well, we don't know. It's for good. I don't know. Let's see what's happening. I'm sure that I will go back to India at some point, but I'm not making any plans on. The plan was to go back to Kumbh Mela in Haridwar next year in 2021. But I don't know. Let's see.
So that's still not decided. It's still possible that you do that trip.
It's still possible to do it, but I don't know. If we're living through the craze of what we're living through these days, then it may not be possible. People also will become more and more scared through the conditioning that we draw out of living in our cell phones and our computers, and we draw a picture of the world that is not what it is. But we'll see.
What was the biggest surprise that you had in the last few months?
Well, it was not really a surprise, but it was more an affirmation of what I thought, could be, is that the digital format of life is not sufficient. And by far not sufficient. It's actually nothing. It's a hoax.
Yeah.
It's not real.
Yeah.
It's just mere intellectual stimulation, and we have enough of that. And how easy I run out of energy on a digital level, while in real life I could go for days. Digitally, I felt like I've lost all my blood in an hour. I'm like,
Yeah. There's certainly a few positive things about the digital form where we can connect in many ways, and I'm super grateful that we are able to connect here over time and space. And but I'm definitely looking forward to be able to give you a hug anytime soon. And
yes,
to connect in the real world and
completely.
Make that happen again. And it just doesn't take away from that. Also, really, I mean, we see each other here now. People will be listening to the podcast, but we see each other here now. And that's definitely the beauty of this kind of format, or at least one benefit of the digital world. But it also doesn't come up with being in the presence of another being in one room and feeling the energy between each other, and really sitting together and having a conversation. So yeah, I'm really, really looking forward to have more of that conversation with you in the physical realm, in a shared space anytime soon. But
hope so.
Before I close this year, is there anything that you would like to add, that you would like to bring out to the world?
No. Be kind. Don't eat other beings. And life is happening every time, every day, every hour, every minute, every second in present tense. And it's not conceptual. And you can't control it. But you can direct it. And the direction happens through devotion and through humility. And then, and then the rest is enjoy it a little bit. Don't demand too much. Little things, that's it.
Thank you so much, Petros. It was beautiful to have you.
Thank you, Sasha.
Dear friends, this was another episode of the Retreat Affairs podcast, this time with Petros Haffenrichter. You will find Petros on his website, pax108.com, or on Instagram @Petros108. Should our conversation get you interested in going on a retreat with Petros, go to yogatravelandbeyond.com. There you will find all the retreats with Petros and many other wonderful retreat offerings. And for all of you that are in Munich or pass by, go and practice with Petros in his studio, Yoga Am Engel. That's engel.yoga. If you like the podcast, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google or Spotify, or any other podcast platform. Or head over to YouTube, where you will find us too. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell to be notified about the next episode. One last request. This is a project from the heart, and it would mean the world to me if you could help me to keep this work up. You can support my work by going to retreataffairs.com, where you can leave a little donation, or subscribe to get exclusive content that will only be available to members. Thank you for your support, and thank you for listening. Until next time, your host, Sascha Kaus.